Welcome back to Learn Piano Live, everybody. It is true that there are some major changes probably coming very, very soon. Maybe as soon as this week. We'll see. Still ironing out some of the details about the schedule and whatnot. But yeah, so we got some cool stuff coming up with the schedule changes. One of the things is we're really working on making all of the lessons more, I don't want to say more practical, but more explicit as to exactly what you're supposed to be doing, especially in the beginner and the beginning of the intermediate lessons. The later intermediate and advanced lessons we're still going to keep kind of open-ended for those of you who like to mess around and make up your own stuff. But today we are talking about speeding up your playing, and kind of the best rule of thumb for playing fast is that if you want to play fast, you got to practice slow. So you can just you can take that little piece of advice and you can just let that simmer. Just meditate on that for, I don't know, however long you meditators meditate. Then that could be the whole lesson right there. Just if you want to get faster, everything has to come way, 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 way down. In my thousands and thousands and thousands of practice teaching. Practice hours of teaching. Students every time want to play fast, and every single time in order to get them to the speed that they want, I always have to slow them down, like 100% of the time. It's not even 99% of the time. 100% of the time, when they've got some song and they feel like they're playing it fast, but they can't quite play it as fast as they want to, I always have to slow them down. We'll talk about why that is, but just know that is the main theme here, is you got to slow everything down, and that's going to make you way, way faster. Let's talk about some fingering rules here. In general, your ring finger, your forefinger, is going to be the most difficult, most precocious finger. It's not going to want to obey anything that you tell it to do. Next after that might be the pinky. The pinky is fast, but it's not very obedient. So just know that when you go to practice, all of our scales and all that stuff, really, these three right here, your claw fingers, these guys are going to do what you want them to do almost all the time. They're going to be the easiest to train and the most obedient. Really what we're doing when we're practicing fingering exercises is trying to train this guy and this guy right here, or girl. And then, so those are the two fingers we're really working on. And then some of the rules in general for fingering, if you just wanted to like a couple blanket statements for all of your songs, try to keep your thumb off of black notes. This is a practical thing. It's not like a special piano technique thing unless you're working with one of those teachers. You know what I'm talking about. One of those teachers. But just as a practical rule, your thumb is generally, hopefully, shorter than the rest of your fingers. So it's not going to be able to reach the black notes as well. So in order to make your thumb reach the black notes, you're going to have to do weird things with your arm and your wrist. So all of that movement, anytime you're moving these big muscles in here, your arm, your shoulder, your body, your wrist, any of that stuff is going to slow you down. So if you want to play fast, it'd be nice to just play all of this stuff right in here and just have your little finger muscles do all of the fast stuff. That's going to be the fastest option. So we want to keep our arm as much out of it as possible as far as the moving around quickly stuff. The weight of your arm and stuff like that, that's for another lesson, is important. But for speed, we want to try to utilize the fingers, and naturally in their just resting state, the thumb is going to be better suited for white notes. That means if you have runs or scales that include black notes and white notes, you want to put the thumb on the rare white notes if they exist. So like in a B major scale, we say that the fingering's supposed to be you don't have to know how to play the B major scale. That's fine. Just know that I've got this little run here, got a bunch of black notes, got only a couple white notes. If I've got a bunch of black notes, I'm going to use these fingers up here. And every time I've got an opportunity to play a white note, I'm going to incorporate my thumb. Even if I could very easily use some other finger for that white note, I want to incorporate my thumb because there's going to be a desert here where I don't get a chance to play the thumb anymore. It's going to be all black notes. And so I want to use my thumb wherever possible on the white notes. When you have a mix of mostly black and some white notes, use your thumb on the white notes because of the whole moving your arm up to catch those other notes thing that we have going. Another couple rules. This stuff, crossing your fingers over other fingers, is almost always a slow and therefore bad idea. The only one that you should be crossing is the thumb. So you can go over your thumb easily, again, for the same reasons. One is that, of course, your thumb is shorter, and so there's less of a finger there to get over. And the other thing is the thumb is the only one that is opposable. So, of course, going like this, making a lateral movement with your hand is going to just be a lot more natural and therefore a lot faster. So you can tuck your thumb under almost any finger. I mean, the farther out you get, tucking it under your pinky is going to be a little bit harder, but tucking it under your ring finger won't be too bad. And you can see as much as possible here too, you want your elbow to not be moving. All this stuff is going to take up time. So if we can keep it just like this, without this all swinging back and forth, and then you're going to end up being a faster player. So try to keep all of this stuff relatively stationary. I'm going to get in trouble for having said that, but you want to not have to swing your arm around in order to get to the notes that you want. Use your fingers to get to the notes that you want. All right, cool. So you're going to cross over your thumb. You can tuck your thumb under. Don't cross your fingers over other fingers. It's just going to be slow and awkward and make your arm do things you don't want your arm to do. And that honestly is about it. Now, there are exceptions to these rules. For example, if you're playing an E flat major chord, you're going to play that. Your thumb is going to be up on a black note. That's fine. Just for going quickly and moving through scales and arpeggios and runs, all of that stuff, these other rules apply. So don't cross over any finger except for your thumb, and don't put your thumb on black notes. That is, yes. That is the majority of the rules there. Also, kind of know in the back of your head, your pinky's going to be a dead end. So because it's hard to tuck your thumb under your pinky, once you get up to your pinky, it's pretty much game over, which means you want to reserve your pinky in the same way that you reserved your thumb for the white notes, because it might be a while before you hit a white note again, depending on the scale or run that you're doing. In the same way, when you hit your pinky, it's fine to use your pinky, but just reserve it for those highest notes. So if you have some run that's going to go up to a C and then come back down, let's say like a C major scale, don't use that pinky. I'm not using my pinky for any of this stuff until I get that last note and I come back down. And in most cases, like you're practicing some classical piece or whatever, you've got the sheet music there in front of you. So you can look and just see like what the highest note is. Or if you're practicing a run, just decide, all right, I'm going to go up to that note. Well, just don't use your pinky until you hit that note, and then you're on your way back down. Pinky's kind of a dead end. All right, that's not an official rule, but yeah, it might be helpful. Let's go ahead and go to our close-up view. This might be a little bit easier to read this stuff. So metronome, this is the thing that's going to, you're going to learn to hate it, and then you're going to learn to love it, then you're going to hate it again, and it's going to go back and forth like that pretty much for the rest of your piano career, I'm afraid. It is the thing that keeps us all in time. So the metronome is just, in case you haven't heard of it before, it's just like a professional clicker. This right here, this thing that sits in the background during my lessons is one. It's not one that I actually ever use, but you might have one of these, or your grandma might. And it goes like that. It just clicks. That's all it does. It clicks faster. Clicks slower. That's all it does. So the metronome is just a professional clicker for you. I'm going to put that one away and use my digital metronome that sounds less annoying to me, and it sounds something like this. That's all it does. It's measured in beats per minute, which is a worldwide standard. Since a minute is a standard thing, 60 beats per minute would be 1 click per second. So if you for some reason need to figure out what the timing of some song is, if you just imagine like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, you just count seconds, that's going to be about 60 beats per minute. So if you're doing 2 of those, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, this is going to be twice that, so it's going to be 120. Yeah, math. That might not matter. You can just use your metronome and just figure out. But 120 is like this right here. 1,002, 1,003, 1,004. Okay, so all of that to say, this is just a worldwide standard, beats per minute. we're not going for any particular beats per minute in any song. We're just going to try to find some really slow tempo to practice something at. The thing that we're going to try practicing today is this guy right here. It's just going to be 2 notes back and forth. You can use your thumb and your pointer like that. You can start on any note you want. I'm starting on a C, which is the note right below a group of 2 black notes. And so you're going to go from that note up 2 notes. We're going to skip over a note and then go 1 down. 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down, 2 up. This is not a great technique exercise because you're just using these 2 fingers, and most people are going to be able to do that pretty consistently very soon, which might make it the perfect beginning technique exercise. So if we had the metronome here, we'd go bum, 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 bum. So this is 124. So the first thing you want to do with your metronome is just listen to it. Make sure that you're right with the rhythm. Imagine yourself playing. Bum, 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 and then start. If you mess up, don't start right back over again. You have to wait, listen. And the goal for me and the goal for you and the goal for everyone is to just bury that sound, that metronome sound. So you want to play it the exact same time as that click or that pop or whatever the sound is on your metronome. You want to play it at such the exact same time that you can't even really hear it because it just sounds like one unified sound. They're playing at the exact same moment. Here's a terrible example. Now, I just played the exact same number of notes as there were beats, so technically I guess it was kind of on beat as an average, but you could definitely hear a click and you could hear a note. We want the 2 to just totally overlap. Some of those were great, some of those were not so great. So that's the goal, is to listen to it and just try to make that one unified sound, the sound of your piano and the sound of your metronome coming to your ears at the exact same moment. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to turn on your metronome. You can also half time or double time this stuff. So when you get down to really slow speeds, like 40 beats per minute, it's really hard to line up the beats because there's so much time in between. There's so many opportunities for you to play just slightly early or slightly late. Like only one of those was really super great and at the exact same time. The others were slightly early or slightly late. So the faster you go, the easier it is to play right along with the metronome. This is one of the reasons you want to practice slow, is because if you can play slow, that means that your timing is so awesome. You're never going to be slightly ahead or slightly behind because you just have that. You've trained yourself to have a really great sense of rhythm. So then playing fast, well, that's going to be easy. Playing fast was always easy. Playing slow, that's really difficult. So then what you can do is to work on that stuff is you can double time that. So that was 40. If I switch this to 80, 80 sounds like this. Now I can just let 2 beats go by for every note that I play. And this is called subdividing. So now that I'm subdividing, I've got some little marker in between that huge chasm of nothingness between the beats, something to kind of help me know when the next one's going to come in. You could do the same thing at, 160. So then you just, at 160, there's the exact same exercise at the exact same tempo, but now I'm going to let 4 beats go by for every one of these I do. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now it's even easier to hear where I'm supposed to come in because all along the way, there's no chasm of emptiness where I'm just trying to guess, is it now the moment? No, now. So that's the subdividing. You can do the opposite of that if you're practicing something and you're up to, 315 beats per minute. There you go. But the metronome's getting really super annoying. Well, you can just cut that in half, or cut that in quarters, or cut that in divided by some number, and then just play multiple notes per beat. So let's say that was 300 beats per minute. If I cut that to 150, then I play the exact same thing, but now I'm going to play 2 beats for every one of these clicks. And now my metronome is significantly less annoying. It's not clicking at me all the time, but I'm still getting to practice at the same speed. Now I can, bump that up from 150 to 175. Don't go from 150 to 175. From 150 to 155 to 160 to 165, and so on until I'm back up to 300 again. Cut it in half again, and you can keep on speeding up. So your metronome does not have to have a wide range of really, really fast tempos and really, really slow tempos, because you are going to either subdivide or you're going to cut the time in half to practice really slow or really fast speeds. Cool. So then, this is the complaint about the metronome, is that you are really good without the metronome, but whenever you put the metronome on, it messes you up. So that's maybe you can already see what's wrong with that, but the metronome is perfect. So all that means is you think that you're really smart, except that when you take tests. I know some of you are bad test takers. You're like, but I am really smart except when I take tests. Okay, maybe a bad example, but hopefully you see the point anyway, that your timing is your timing, and the metronome is the test to test whether or not you have good timing. So if you feel like you have good timing, except when the metronome comes in and it messes you up, that probably means that your timing is not as great as you think that it was. Same thing. I get the same thing with kids when I give them tracks to practice along with, and I just want to play it by myself because I'm a lot better when I practice by myself. I'm like, all right, cool. So show me that, and they're like, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Like, see, when I don't play with the track, I play it great. I'm like, well, that wasn't great. That's the problem. So you have to find nice ways to say that as a teacher. But since I'm speaking anonymously to kind of all of you, it just means you suck and you don't know it yet. But that's fine. You can fix it with the metronome. So the metronome, if you feel like it messes you up, that's fine. Turn the metronome off. Practice a little bit more. Try to get it to what feels like, okay, this definitely has to be a really good, solid rhythm, and then turn the metronome back on. Take that test again and see how you're doing. Ultimately, you have to know that when you're practicing along, or when you're playing along with a band, like in a live situation, like eventually you will, or when someone comes over your house, like, hey, I heard you started playing piano. Yeah, I play piano. What do you play? Oh, I don't know. What do you want to sing? That would be a really brave move, huh? But let's say you guys decide what they're gonna sing and what you're gonna play, and then you start playing it, and their timing is bad. Well, guess what? You're going to have to adjust your timing to them, because the band always has to adjust to the worst player. The best players are the players that listen, they can play really great rhythms, but they can also listen really well to everybody else, so they adjust their rhythms to whoever the worst player on the bandstand is. That's the rhythm that we're using, because we all got to stick together no matter what. So not only does this help you have great rhythm and not be the worst person on the bandstand, but it also helps you to not only play, but while you're playing, also listening to something else and adjusting to that thing. The thing that you're adjusting to here is a perfect metronome. Eventually in the future, what you'll be adjusting to is a very imperfect singer or drummer or somebody else. All right, cool. So then here's the other thing that happens. This will be the last thing that I yap about before the end of the lesson today. This is kind of a chart of what I see in my students. So for every song, there is some difficult part. If you're in Clopple Academy, you know for every level, there is some difficult little thing. Maybe it's the intervals in the theory section, or maybe it's the repertoire, some song just hanging you up, and the rest of it goes great. Well, it's the same thing with every song. You'll get a lot of it. You'll get 80 to 90% of it relatively quickly. And then there's that last annoying little section that you just need to slow down during that one part. Back to the twinkle, twinkle, little star thing, I would frequently run into this as a teacher. Well, it's great that you played almost all of it perfectly, but we got this one little thing where you take this big, fat, huge break. Your speed goes from here all the way down to here. Well, guess what? That all the way down here, that is your new speed limit. That's where you need to practice the whole thing, because the whole thing needs to be smooth. Smooth is hard. Speed is easy. Smooth is hard. Speed is easy. Smooth is hard. So that's what we want to do is, if your song looks like this red line here, and you can play most of it fast, except for that one little transition, and then you can play the rest of it really fast, and then it kind of slows down, and then at the end you can, if you, wherever that dip is, wherever that lowest spot is, that is the speed that you need to slow the whole rest of the song down to. Practice at that speed, and then speed that section. Now, ideally, what you would do is you would just practice this section right here. You would ignore the rest of the song. Most people don't have the patience to do that, because this part over here, that's the fun part. This part over here, that's the fun part. This part right here, that's the annoying part that I don't really want to practice. So ideally, you would just take that one part at that speed with that metronome, and then you'd go at that speed, and then you go at that speed, and then you go at that speed, and then you go at that speed, never speeding up by any more than 5 beats per minute at a time. Then you go at that speed. By the way, if you get it at some new speed, that does not mean you have it. Once you can do it consistently 5 to 10 times in a row without messing up, then you have the new speed, and it's time to bump it up by 5 beats per minute. Then you go at that speed, and that speed, and that speed, until you've finally filled in all of that stuff, and now you can play it at this other higher tempo. But at least what I'll do with my students is slow the whole thing down to this base tempo. That is your new speed limit. Note though, that I did set my speed limit on this person's song to slightly above what their very slowest speed was. So on that one break where they have to go really, really slow, I'm going a little bit faster than that. So it's a little bit of a stretch, but the majority of the song is just boring as goodness gracious. That's not a thing, but you know what I mean. So yeah, the majority of it, if you're practicing appropriately, the majority of the song is going to be super duper duper boring, and then there's going to be that one little moment of sheer panic of, I don't know if I can do this. Oh, I did it. Okay, cool. Oh, this is so boring. Do I really have to go this slow? And during that whole time, it's back to that whole 40 beats per minute thing where that thing's going crazy slow. And the question is, are you good enough to play the song that slow and to not jump in early? That self-control is that ability to play and to listen to yourself at the same time that eventually is really, really going to pay off. So during this section up here, while you're playing this part of the song, the question is, do I have the self-control and the ability to listen to myself and evaluate on the fly to actually play it this slow? And then over here, the question is, am I fast enough to get it up to that same speed that was the same? It's kind of like that there's that one thing, the dress that is gold or blue depending on the situation. So this song is either hard or easy, but honestly the truth is the metronome is still the same all the way through. That analogy didn't work at all. But you've had a little exercise there. We talked a lot about the metronome and why in the world we would want to use it. We talked about, this is where I'm supposed to say, and now for our wrap up. There we go. That's why I need a moderator right there. So we talked about why playing slow, practicing slow means the ability to play fast. We talked about which fingers were going to be the annoying fingers, which ones we're actually practicing when we're practicing to go faster. We talked about some of the rules about not crossing over fingers. Usually your thumb is going to stay down, especially on faster sections. Going up here, just know that that's going to be slower, and that whenever your arm is moving around, that's going to be a slower movement too. None of those really matter a whole lot when you're going slow, by the way. So in general, for your scales and stuff, since down the road, the goal is to play all of those very fast, to be able to play those fast, then we start out with the proper fingering at the beginning. But the truth is, you could play an E-flat major scale like that, all thumb. That's the worst technique in the world. But that sounds just as good as the appropriate technique. Like, the notes sound the same, So the only reason that you would use correct fingering is to set yourself up to later on be able to do that thing faster. Okay. I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to say any of that. Use the proper technique all the time. That's the right way to do it. Otherwise, it's not real music. Metronome, if you feel like the metronome is messing you up, then it's probably because you're messing up. So find your baseline speed, set that as your speed limit, and then practice it at that. Take the boring parts as an opportunity to practice that self-control that you're going to need and the ability to listen to yourself as you play. And then during those terrifying parts, then push hard. Try to get through those sections right there. I think that's pretty much it. So let's let's go to our questions and some answers, hopefully. Maybe we got some answers this time. Okay. Oh, we didn't do our feature of the day either. Ah, okay. Let's do that too. If you got a question, you can go ahead and throw it in. We'll try to include that. There we go. There's our feature of the day. Quote of the day. So, I've told this story before in other contexts, but when I was starting this thing out, I went to one of my good friends at the time, and he's already had done this very successfully with a different instrument. And so I took him all of my stuff. I had just done a couple lessons, really not even started out yet very much, and took him all my stuff, laid it out for him at Elephant Bar restaurant, and showed him, here's what I've been working on. What's your advice, man? I got through like my half-hour presentation, and he looked at it all, and he's like, yeah, well, it's pretty rare that much effort doesn't pay off somehow. That was the total of his advice to me, was like, yeah, good job. Work hard. Way to go. I'm not going to make any comments on any of that. And that has come back to me. Maybe he didn't even mean that that way. I don't know. Maybe he had just had a bad day, or he was totally distracted. But I took it to heart and made something out of it, which is you just gotta put in some work sometimes. Sometimes you gotta grind away. And definitely, whenever we're talking about the metronome or technique stuff, we're always talking about just grinding away. Spend the hours, spend it with the metronome. You're not going to notice, you're not going to have noticeable changes within a couple hour period, maybe within a couple hours, but definitely not within 10 minutes. At 10 minutes with the metronome feels like years with the metronome. So it's going to take a while for this stuff to really pay off and for you to see the differences, but it's really, really rare that much effort doesn't pay off somehow. So with that, I guess we'll get to the questions for real. Alrighty. And question number 1, where do I get a good metronome? I get all of my stuff from Amazon. I got this one from Amazon. This is like, I don't know, $40 or something like that. They're up to like 80 or 150 bucks for the really expensive ones, but free apps. They're all over the place. In fact, if you just Google in Chrome, if you Google metronome, it has a metronome in there that's super duper decent, not horrible metronome at all. So yeah, free apps is what I would say. Next one, is it better to practice with the play-alongs or always use a metronome? They should be, if you're practicing appropriately, they should be the same. The problem with the play-alongs is that they don't have variable speeds unless you have some special app that's going to do that for you. So the metronome is the only thing that's going to consistently be there to take you from the lowest point to the highest point. Also, with the metronome, you can start over, right? Like the metronome is just clicking. And with the play along, some people get distracted by like, oh, well, now I got to rewind it, wait for my part to come in, and all of that is wasted time. That's all time that you're not practicing. So with the metronome, with the clicking, you mess up, you can just go right back and then listen for a couple seconds and then jump right back in. So the metronome is probably more efficient that way. Definitely less fun, but they're both trying to accomplish the same thing. So if you are good at clicking around in your track, they should be the same thing. You have no track today, though, because your track today is your metronome. So if you download that MP3, it's just going to be me saying, sorry, there's no track, and I'll explain why. The reason why is it's your metronome. That's what you're supposed to be working with. And it looks like that might be the end of it. So I guess until next time, which might be, I'll go ahead and give you this. It might be Sunday, might be the next time. No, sorry. Tomorrow we're definitely doing a lesson. Wednesday we're definitely doing a lesson. And then the next lesson after that might be Sunday when we cover the songs. And the cover for I Try is coming. They're all college students, and all these college students are all like busy with their school and their Halloween parties and their whatnot. So they're all coming in, but they're all busy doing more important things than what I wanted to do. Well, till next time. Love you. Good luck. Have fun.